Hey Addicts, welcome back. I'm Josh.
And I'm Michael.
And today we're here to talk about Volume 4 of Arifureta. Yep, that's the right volume. So
Yeah.
check.
We got light today.
We do. Now you can finally see our faces. So this volume takes place pretty seemingly immediately after the third volume. We get to see Hajime and his group return to Furan to deliver Will to Illawa. And we get to see some of his, getting warmed up to the people that live in the city. Yeah. And certain things get destroyed, and he ends up taking a small child under his wing, and in turn accepts a new quest. And in his journey to fulfill that quest and get onto his next destination, he gets to encounter the Hirapari once again, and a battle breaks out in a very familiar labyrinth.
Yeah, we've been there before.
Yep. So, and that's basically the sense of what everything that happens. So, Michael's going to talk about a little bit about the new characters that are introduced.
So, there's not too many new characters in this one. You just have Mew, which is the child that they rescue. Pretty good character overall. I liked her in this book. We have Endo, who's the who's the ninja of the classroom.
Yeah.
His special talent is that no one ever notices him. So he does like invisible magic or whatever, but it's pretty great because in here it does talk about someone like even back in Japan, no one noticed him at all.
The automatic doors wouldn't open for him.
Yeah,
like 1/3 of the time. It would
work. So he's pretty great. Really used for serious like plot elements, but also some comic relief in there as well.
Yeah.
And Kazuya is an enemy of the class, kind of like at the beginning they're fighting demons or whatever. She's one of them. You get to learn more about her and why she is so strong, and basically what the demons are kind of up to in this book. So,
yeah, and you want to get into favorite moments? This is filled with a lot of good stuff in the beginning and the end, I would say.
Yes, actually. Do you want to go?
Sure, I can go.
Okay.
So one of the things we get to see is him facing a slave ring in the city of Furan, and I just love just how he deals with that situation and just how like nonchalantly he is about it. He's like, you deal with the reports. So that was a really great thing to start off like the volume. For me, this volume has a very strong beginning and ending. So there's a lot of moments in those areas particularly. Along with maybe some of the other things was the very end fight, not going too specifically on that. But more so, I really think this is the volume where we start to get a little bit more connected with the classmates. We're getting to see that a few of them are a little bit more likable. I didn't turn off my phone. But in particular, we get to see more of Kaori, and I think she really gets to the point where you start accepting her as a main character of the series. And so I really like seeing her actually come into the centerfold of being shown off, and just the more depth that they add to her character.
Yeah, I really like the dynamic in this book with the characters. I like specifically I really liked how like Mew gets introduced and how that changes the dynamic. You have characters like you and Hajime kind of dealing with having a kid around, and that's kind of funny, especially with them like trying to go to a dungeon in some parts of this book. They're like, well, we have a kid, so I don't know what we can do. And then we have the end fight. Just even the conversation in that fight is pretty great. And I also especially love Endo and his presence and how he like escapes situations is pretty great. And that scene in the dungeon with the classroom is probably one of the first scenes, and it's maybe because of the circumstances they're in that I was like, I like this scene. I like going back.
Because I think one of the things that really helps your intrigue at the very beginning is that this is a more serious life or death situation for the classmates. So, I mean, even though you maybe don't care about if they live or die, you get to see a good action. But then that really develops more, and then you get to care a little bit more about certain ones. There's still some that don't have a whole lot of development, but there's definitely more people that you care about in this one than I would say in the previous volumes. But on the other side of characters, we get to see a bit more dev into like Hajime's relationships with his team. Like for instance, Hajime gets to go on a date with Shia, and so that's a pretty great interaction. We also get to see more of Tio and just how she interacts with the group, which is pretty priceless. I don't know. There's I think this volume, since it's right after the part where he gets to talk with Aiko, you get to see his fundamentals start to soften, maybe, I guess is the best word, because they don't really change. He still has the same core elements about him that he had at the end of Volume 1, but we get to see maybe a more softer side of him, or maybe open-minded side. And it's especially interesting to see that, in the interactions with Mew, because he says himself that he's like, wow, if I was like the same person that walked out of the abyss, I would have cared at all about this person. I would have like stopped at all. But and then, so that just goes to show how much he's grown as a character in these 4 volumes.
With that being said, you still get classic Hajime, especially towards the end.
Oh yeah, well, because not going to say who particularly, but there's a good probably like 1,000 people that die in this volume. So he's not anybody that's like, oh, peace.
Yeah, he's not a peacemaker.
Yeah.
He's still got a mission.
Yeah, so that's one of those great things. I guess we can get into our final moments. Keep this nice, short and sweet one. What are some final remarks?
So yeah, I really liked, I'm similar to Josh, I really liked the ending. The beginning is pretty interesting. It's kind of like a change in shift in the beginning, because it's literally like a date sequence, and it gets to them destroying like the criminal underground of the city, which is great. But I really liked that and the ending. This was probably the first book where I wasn't disappointed when I got to see the classmates talk and interact, and I actually had fun reading what was happening to them, and the actual scene in the dungeon. It was good to go back there, since it's been, I guess, 3 books pretty much since we've gone there, and they still haven't completed the dungeon, which is great. And it's great to see, and you get to see more of Kaori and some other characters who I can't pronounce their name, but Samurai Chick and the hero guy, you get to see more of him being the worst and not having the guts to do the job. So it's pretty great. I think there's one scene between the hero guy, Kuyuki, I don't know.
Kuki or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Him and Samurai Chick, and it's just like, it's basically like, you're worthless, you're the worst hero, what are you doing? You're risking people's lives because you're hesitating.
Yeah, or it's like, I won't go into that because it's spoilers, but the way he, first interacts with his enemy, and people are like, no, what are you doing? We could have totally handled this a better way, and he's like, ah! So, but for me, I guess, like Michael said, this is the first volume you really get a look at the classmates, and you actually start to like some of them, or you start to enjoy seeing their story. I guess for me, like I said at the beginning, really strong, really like it. The middle is a little bit slow, and but it builds on you as it goes, because it's trying to get you to be more invested in those characters. But by the end of it, I think it really pays off, and it becomes just as enjoyable as the beginning part of the volume, especially with Kaori's extra chapter that you get at the very end, kind of delving a little bit more into her background, I guess, in terms of her devotion or her connection with Hajime. And I really like that. I think it added a lot, and it makes her more likable than she was in the previous volumes. For me, I guess going into rating,
yeah, we can do it.
I think this is a high tier FFA. This is really good. I think it's one of those where it's different enough from the other ones. We get to see kind of a transitioning a bit, and it expands in a really good way. Making you like a lot of the characters. So that's what I would give it. I think one of the things I want to highlight, though, before I switch over to Michael, is, if you've watched our other ones, we've been giving a consistently high rating of this series, which, part of that is because it's got, really good action. It's got a really great, main cast of characters. But I think another thing that really adds that we haven't really talked too much on is just how good the writing is and its structure. There's a lot of things that the author does where he'll explain a scene or he'll describe it, and it's every single time it's different. There's not really, I guess maybe in one of the later books he does repeat one phrase, but out of that it's pretty varied, and every time you read a new scene it's different, which I compare that to like Danmachi, because there's one, Danmachi is pretty good at it too, but there's one thing that the author says, and he uses it all the time, and I think he's used it like 15 times. There's a certain metaphor he uses, and it gets a little repetitive, so there's nothing like that here. It's really well written. I like that. I also like the use of, they're kind of like side stories at the very end, so they're meant as, you know, an addition to the characters to give them a little bit more depth, but it doesn't interrupt the overall story of the volume. And it's done in a way to where you don't have to have a whole volume set on these side stories to develop these characters more. And that's one thing I think is done perfectly.
Yeah. For me, I'd also give it an FFA. This, I really like the content of the volume, for the most part. This is one where you don't have a dungeon really like featured as like a main component of the book. So that's kind of something that's different from previous. But I really like the fights, the reunion with the class, and I like some of the kind of like this is in this volume. I really like how they exhibited like his power in comparison to his class and in comparison to like people who are also in the world. Specifically, how he dealt with some monsters. And there's interviewers like, "What? Those are our strongest monsters. How could you do that?" There's parts like that. So yeah, I give it an FFA as well. It's really hard with this series and also like Danmachi, because it's like these are really really good, but like Volume 1 is a little bit better, and I feel like to put it on the same playing field as Volume 1 would kind of be disingenuous, because I think Volume 1's a little bit better, and we'll get to it, but I think Volume 6 is a little bit better as well. But yeah, I think it's a strong FFA. I definitely recommend it. And I really liked kind of how they brought all the characters together in this one.
That's a good way of doing it. And we can't wait to talk about the next volume. So we will be back. And, until then, stay tuned for the rest of the stuff we got on the channel. If you want to check out our other anime reviews, we also do other light novels. We got Danmachi. We're planning on doing a bit more of those as time goes on. But we're also having a lot of American comics coverage come up. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to follow us on social media or check out our podcast, links to those will be in the description. But until next time, we'll see you later, Addicts.